The dimly lit bar hummed with the usual Friday night energy. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. A soundtrack to the end of a long week. Tucked away in a quiet corner, a woman named Maya nursed her drink, her presence unassuming. She wore simple jeans and a plain t-shirt. Blending seamlessly into the crowd, her focus was on the book in her hands, a deliberate shield from the boisterous atmosphere. But some things are hard to ignore. A group of 4 men, broad-shouldered and loud, made their way through the bar. Their fresh, high-end tight haircuts and confident swagger announced them as military personnel long before anyone saw the emblems on their casual jackets. They were Marines, celebrating a recent return from deployment, and they were looking to unwind. They spotted Maya, a lone figure in a sea of groups, and saw an easy target for their brand of fun. One of them, a man named Jake, Asagian by the looks of his demeanor, broke away from his friends. He sauntered over to her table, a smirk playing on his lips. "Hey there," he began, his voice a little too loud. "A pretty lady like you shouldn't be reading all by herself on a Friday night." He leaned against her table, invading her personal space. Maya looked up slowly, her expression unreadable. She marked her page before closing the book. "I'm enjoying the quiet," she replied, her voice calm and even. Her lack of immediate engagement seemed to egg him on. "Quiet. The night's young. Come on, have a drink with us. We're celebrating. You should be too." He gestured back to his friends, who were now watching the interaction with amusement. She offered a polite but firm smile. "Thanks, but I'm good. I'm waiting for someone." It was a classic excuse, one she hoped would be enough. But Jake wasn't easily deterred. "Waiting for someone. We're someone." He laughed, his buddies joining in. "Don't be shy. We don't bite ... much." He reached out, intending to playfully take her book, a move meant to be charmingly roguish. That's when the atmosphere shifted. Before his fingers could even touch the cover, Maya's hand shot out, not with aggression, but with a speed that was startling. She didn't grab his wrist. She simply placed her hand over his, her grip surprisingly strong. Her eyes, which had been passive moments before, now held a glint of steel. "I said, I'm good," she repeated, her tone dropping just enough to lose its politeness. Jake froze, taken aback. The strength in her grip was unexpected, a stark contrast to her slender frame. He tried to pull his hand away, but it was held fast. It wasn't a painful hold, but it was immovable. A quiet demonstration of absolute control, a flicker of confusion. Then annoyance crossed his face. His friends stopped laughing, sensing the change in their leader's demeanor. "Hey, let go," Jake mumbled, his bravado faltering. Maya released him just as suddenly as she had grabbed him. She picked up her book, her composure completely intact. "Please enjoy your night," she said, her voice once again neutral, as if the last 30 seconds hadn't happened. She reopened her book, a clear dismissal. For a moment, Jake just stood there, flexing his hand, his pride stinging more than his wrist. His friends were now looking at him, waiting to see his next move. Embarrassed in front of his unit, he felt he had to reassert his dominance. "Who do you think you are?" he sneered, stepping closer again. "You think you're tough or something?" One of his friends, a corporal named Miller, stepped up beside him. "Yeah, maybe we should teach you some manners." The threat hung in the air, heavy and stupid. They were bigger, stronger, and there were 4 of them. In their world, that math was simple, but they had no idea what kind of math Maya was used to. She sighed, a genuine, tired sigh, as if dealing with this was the most tedious part of her day. She slowly stood up. She wasn't particularly tall, but the way she held herself suddenly made her seem to fill the space. Her posture was perfect, her shoulders squared. She wasn't just standing. She was taking a stance. Every muscle was relaxed, but ready. A state of calm alertness that is drilled into a very specific type of soldier. "Listen," she said, her voice low and direct, meant only for them. "You've had a long deployment. You're back home. You should be celebrating with your friends and family, not trying to prove something in a bar. This isn't the way to do it. Go back to your table. We'll all forget this happened." Her words were a warning, but also an out. A chance for them to walk away with their pride mostly intact. Her understanding of their situation, her reference to their deployment, threw them off. How could she know? But Jake's ego was too bruised to listen to reason. "You don't tell us what to do," he growled, and shoved her shoulder. It was a stupid, impulsive move, born of frustration. He expected her to stumble back, to be intimidated. She didn't move an inch. It was like shoving a granite statue. Her feet were planted, her core solid. The force of his push seemed to dissipate into her frame. Then, in a blur of motion so fast it was hard to follow, she acted. She used his own momentum against him, sidestepping his clumsy shove, hooking her foot behind his ankle, and applying a gentle but firm pressure point to the side of his neck. Jake's legs tangled, and he went down, not with a crash, but in a controlled fall, landing on his backside with a surprised grunt. It was a textbook takedown, executed with flawless precision and minimal force. The bar went silent around them. The other 3 Marines stared, mouths agape. They had seen bar fights. They had been in fights. This was not a fight. This was a demonstration. Miller and the others started to move forward, instincts kicking in to help their leader. But before they could take a step, a voice cut through the silence. "That's enough, Marines." The voice was deep, authoritative, and carried the unmistakable weight of command. A man in his late 50s, dressed in a sharp suit, was approaching their table. His hair was gray at the temples, and his eyes had a look of someone who had seen it all. As he got closer, the Marines snapped to attention, their eyes wide with shock and recognition. The man was General Thompson, a highly respected and somewhat legendary figure in the special operations community, a man whose picture hung in the halls of their own training facilities. "General! Sir!" Jake stammered, scrambling to his feet, his face flushed with a mixture of awe and utter mortification. General Thompson ignored them for a moment, his gaze fixed on Maya. A small, knowing smile touched his lips. "Captain Evans," he sighed warmly, "I see you're keeping sharp, even on your downtime. I apologize for my men's behavior. It seems they've forgotten the meaning of professional courtesy." The 4 Marines looked from the general to Maya, the pieces clicking into place with horrifying clarity. Captain, Special Forces, Undercover. The woman they had been harassing wasn't just some civilian. She was Captain Maya Evans, one of the most decorated operators in the Special Forces, renowned for her skills in close-quarters combat and deep cover infiltration. The book she was reading wasn't for leisure. It was part of maintaining her cover for an ongoing operation. The bar was her observation post. They hadn't just hit on a woman, they had tried to intimidate a legend. The color drained from Jake's face. He and his men were good soldiers, tough Marines, but they were infantry. Captain Evans was on a whole other level. A tier of the military they only heard stories about. They had just challenged a shark, thinking she was a goldfish. General Thompson turned his stern gaze back to the Marines. "Sergeant," he said to Jake, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous tone, "you and your men will apologize to the captain. Then you will report to my office at 0600 tomorrow. All of you. We're going to have a long talk about conduct, respect, and the critical importance of situational awareness." "Yes, sir," they chorused, their voices trembling slightly. One by one, they turned to Maya, their faces a mask of profound regret. "Captain ... Jake began, his voice barely a whisper. "We are deeply sorry for our disrespectful behavior. There's no excuse, ma'am." The others echoed his apology, their earlier arrogance completely gone, replaced by the humility of soldiers standing before a superior officer they had gravely misjudged. Maya looked at them, her expression softening. She saw not just arrogant grunts, but young men who had let off steam in the worst possible way. "Apology accepted," she said simply. "Learn from it. Be better." She then nodded to the general. "Sir, it's good to see you." "You too, Captain," he replied. "Your ride is waiting out back. We're clear to proceed." He gave the Marines one last withering look before turning and walking towards the exit. Maya picked up her book and her drink gave the bartender a nod and followed him, leaving the floor. Moraine standing in the middle of the now buzzing bar, utterly humiliated, and with a terrifying 0600 meeting to look forward to. They had learned a valuable lesson that night. You never, ever know who you're talking to, and sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous one. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let us know in the comments what you think about this intense encounter. See you next time.